Oh, hello, greetings. Oh, my hair's a little bit messed up. There we go. So, greetings from Tokyo, my friends, for another quick video here. Oh, here we go. Excuse me while I get set up here. Okay, here we go. So, greetings from Tokyo. Whoops. Yes, here we go. I'm all set up, so pardon me for that. But greetings from Tokyo, my friends. This is Daisuke, and I hope you are doing well this weekend. It is now, gosh, December 1st, 2019. Is that right? It's the evening here where I am in Tokyo. So it is likely, right, based on the time difference, December 1st in other parts of the world already. So if that's the case, my friend, then happy December. And I am very pleased to see you. And my goodness, time indeed flies, does it not? It's hard to imagine that we are already 1 month away from the year 2020. It seems like 2019 just came and is almost gone, but that is the way of things when right, when one is passing along, I suppose, during this time. But it's just 2019, so we still have a little bit of time left, I suppose, my friends. But anyway, I hope you're doing very well. Please pardon me and pardon the intrusion and the interruption and the appearance here, but I wanted to say hello, and I was actually going to do a video about this topic that I was going to bring up now, but I thought, what the heck? It might be a good opportunity to just do an impromptu video about this particular topic that I wanted to bring up. It was a very, I think, it's not a particularly significant topic, but it's one that's been on my mind for some weeks now, and it was something that I was very encouraged by over this last batch of comments that I was very fortunate to have received, maybe about over maybe the course of a few videos back. And so I wanted to bring this point up as a sort of a discussion, or not really a discussion, but just a conversation about the film fan community online and my view or my approach on so-called negative film, let's say negative comments on films and the like. And so I just wanted to just bring this up and hopefully provide a little bit of explanation where you think it might be needed as to my own personal approach. So I want to say that I'm very encouraged, as always, by the viewers here in this particular YouTube channel. I count myself as being very fortunate to have been able to meet a great number of people who are not only film enthusiasts and not only very intelligent and very sharp and astute and very much observant of many kinds of aspects of cinema, but I find that the conversations, for the most part, to be very, very pleasant and very positive. Now, I should be very clear. And when I say the word positive, I mean it in a kind of general sense of the term, in that I find that the conversations that are being had between you and me, for example, or between you and other people here, I find them to be, on the whole, to be very genuine and made in good faith, and also made with a sense of respect towards one another. And I'm very grateful for that, very much indeed. And am, I'm not, I don't consider myself to be, well, let me put it this way. I'm not necessarily naive when it comes to how the internet can work. I mean, I can appreciate how certain things might happen on the internet that might not necessarily be the most pleasant things on Earth. So I can understand the nature of the internet and how things might go. So, but I should be very clear, that I am I am never, I never think that that negative opinions on films are in any way a bad thing. I don't think that at all. And not, please, nothing has come up lately to make me want to make this video. It's just, it's something I've been thinking about for some time. I just wanted to make myself absolutely clear. I am very conscious of the fact that I think it's very important to be able to express oneself in a way that one feels comfortable based on one's reaction to a particular work. And I understand also that not everyone will respond in the same way to every kind of film, which means, of course, that leaves open the possibility for people to respond negatively to certain films. And so therein lies a question, well, what happens if someone responds negatively to a film that I, for instance, might respond positively towards? And the answer to that question is simple. That is fine. That is absolutely fine. That's more than fine. I think it's absolutely splendid, and it's excellent. It would be a very boring place if everyone reacted in the same way. It would be equally as boring a place if everyone always responded positively to this particular film or that particular release from this particular label and such and therefore and thereon, respectively. So I think that I was very much encouraged. For instance, I made a few comments lately about a film which is called The Irishman, which is a film directed by Martin Scorsese. And I was very encouraged because, of course, I received a number of comments from a number of people who were making very positive comments about the film. And I also received a number of comments from people who maybe responded maybe with mixed reaction or maybe slightly negative reaction or disappointment towards the film. And I was at no point during any part of that conversation, at least so far anyway, did I ever sense anyone being antagonistic towards each other or at any time showing a kind of disrespect towards another person's view, etc. And I was so happy and encouraged by the kind of the kind of real openness in attitude that people seem to express, even when they might be disagreeing, for instance, with me about the certain substance of a particular work, in this case, that being The Irishman. And so I thought it was a really lovely thing. I thought it was really great. And so I was so encouraged, in fact, that I was going to make a video about it just to express to you my gratitude about that. But I decided it might be a little bit more appropriate if I made this live video. So that's why I made another unannounced live video. So please pardon my intrusion on your day here. Again, I don't mean to interrupt you during the day. I know maybe for some of you it's a day off as well, so I don't mean to interrupt you on your day off. It's the last thing I want to do. But I do want to just extend to you my thanks and appreciation for that. And also as an opportunity for me to just reinforce what my overall feeling is, which is it is absolutely okay to be negative on a film. It is absolutely okay to be negative on a film. It is also, I think, okay to diss on a work of art. I mean, right? Because another way to put it, another way to think of it, of course, is, films and DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff. I mean, they cost money, right? They cost money, and another way to think of it is, we pay a certain amount of money to be able to watch something, or to appreciate something, or to give us the opportunity to be able to watch something, which will then provide us with the opportunity to evaluate the work and how it affected us, etc. So one way to think of it, of course, is maybe from a purely sort of capitalistic point of view, as a transactional point of view, that sort of thing, which is that the default setting would be we pay something, so we should have a certain say, especially since it's a subjective thing. We should have a certain say as to how a film or work of art affects us. And if it affects us negatively, then there is nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think the fact that we have to pay money to be able to get the opportunity to appreciate something means that even a negative reaction to a film, I think, is perfectly legitimate. And it's also very healthy too, because there's no reason to have to feel forced to say that one likes something if really deep down one doesn't like something. I think that's very antithetical to this idea of being free to appreciate art the way one wants to, being free to do this and to do that, and that sort of thing. So I always want to convey to those of you out there who are very kind enough to stop by this channel and to watch a couple videos here and there, or maybe little snippets here and there, depending on the busyness of your schedule. I always want to convey to all of you that I value any opinion or any view or any reaction to a particular work, even those that are not in agreement with how I view the same work. And I think that it's a very important thing for me anyway, to listen to other people's opinions about something, because that's the only way for me to be able to grow as a viewer. I can, of course, it's my choice to not listen to anyone. I can make that choice, and it wouldn't necessarily, change me, at least on the surface. I would still, I think, be the same person on the surface. So and in many ways, it might be easier for me from a certain point of view, of course, to consider only my own thoughts and think everyone else is incorrect. It's much easier to consider oneself correct rather than feel challenged or anything like that. I mean, I acknowledge that it's much easier to feel that way, but ultimately, I would never be able to learn anything new from that kind of approach. And so I always try to listen to anyone who has a different approach, and even if it's in a negative view that's opposite from what I might view based on the same film, I still am always open to that sort of thing. Always open to that. And the YouTube thing, I've been very fortunate also to have been able to receive a lot of comments. Some of them, not all of them, of course, are the most pleasant comments in the world. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast, so to speak. And so one can either ignore them, or one can try to somehow or another work with them. Now, granted, of course, I think there are some comments that are just impossible for me to work with. I think those are the extreme examples. But even the ones that I think are, from maybe a personal point of view, somewhat, I would say, troublesome for me to deal with, maybe on a personal level, or at first glance, I might think this is, I don't quite understand what's going on here. That sort of thing. Still, I always have to try to remember that the world is a big place, and the world is so big that there are different points of view that exist by virtue of the fact that the world is indeed a big place. And not only that, right? The human condition and the way we think is very complicated, right? Just thinking about one's own thoughts and ways of thinking and philosophies and likes and dislikes and strengths and foibles and all that. I think we can all agree that the human condition is a really complicated thing to consider. And if we consider how complicated that is, and of course, anyone's opinion can be nuanced with a same or even greater degree of complication. And so I completely am open to that. And I think that means that it is very important for me to be able to listen as best as I can to the varying degrees of opinions that I'm very grateful to receive through this YouTube channel. And so I just want to make it clear that I am more or less open to comments here. I never block any comments. I never shut down any comments or block anyone here. I don't believe in that. If of course, if something comes up, if there's, of course, you always have to understand too that even comments that are made in bad faith by bad faith actors, shall we say? I mean, as I say, the world is full of many sorts of people, and there are even bad faith actors that make comments here from time to time, which is I don't block those either, and my philosophy on that is actually quite simple, which is I think a bad faith comment that is left behind, it actually looks bad on the person making the comment, if you know what I mean. And so, I mean, I always one of the ways I try to address those comments whenever I receive them, and again, I'm very fortunate that I don't receive a lot of those, so I don't have to worry about it too much. But in the once in a while I do receive that, maybe here or other forums or something like that. But the way that I usually try to view that is bad faith comments are, first and foremost, they look bad on the person making the comment. They always look bad. It never looks good on the person making that sort of comment. And it looks even worse because there is nothing, I think there's nothing pettier, or there's nothing that indicates how small one is than being so overly worked up about something that is so ultimately not worth getting so worked up about, which is cinema. I mean, I love cinema, don't get me wrong, but cinema, I think, is the last thing that people should be worked up about. I think there are some things that are in life that are much more important to be worked up about, and it's much more important to spend one's energy being worked up over much more pressing matters than any disagreements that one might have over a piece of cinema. So I always think that anyone who gets so worked up as to leave a bad faith comment, leave it in writing for the whole world to see on the internet, I always find that to be a little bit of a stupid move on the part of anyone who makes those sorts of comments, because it looks bad on them. And it's left behind, and people can stop by and scrutinize that and read that and make judgments on that. And so I always suggest to people who do that, it's probably best for you in the long run to delete the comment, because otherwise people are just going to stop by and just read the comment, just see what kind of sort of narrow view that that sort of approach has. And so it doesn't hurt me in any sort of way. So it only harms the person making the comment. You know what I mean? So that is a general approach that I tend to have with that sort of thing, which is another way to say that it's never worth it to be overly worked up in a negative way over over a piece of cinema. It's never worth it. It's never worth it. It's always worth it to just enjoy the time you have and to spend it in a most worthwhile way, because the time that we have on this world, in this earth, is, you know, like it or not, it is limited. When our time on this earth is finite, you know, we only have a certain number of years before we must, right, shuffle off this mortal coil. And so we might as well spend the time we have in the most worthwhile way, right, through endeavors that we find are productive to our own lives, right? So, so, but that does not mean that I do not listen to negative views on cinema. Negativity on cinema is just as important, I would say, as positivity on cinema. It's this idea of balance, right? And right, we see this also in science. You know, we can't have a world just made up of positive ions. We need counterbalancing with negative ions and that negative charge, right, in order to create a kind of equilibrium or balance. So I think the same is true for opinions on art. It's not good if there is too much of an imbalance in one direction or another. And so that is why I value even negative takes on works, and I will never waver from that. And I want to make it very clear that I am very open to that, as always, and I always will be. And as long as you are making comments in good faith, I will always respond in good faith. You have that promise from me always. And that is also my way of saying that, you know, I can always detect when people are making comments in bad faith. So, you know, that's fine. And I think you know, there are many ways to deal with those sorts of comments, and I've been, as I say, very fortunate that those have been very few and far between. So, but just know that anytime you want to have a discussion or disagreement with me on anything, I'm perfectly fine with that. If I am wrong, I will of course admit my own mistake, but it's more important for me to know that the conversations are ongoing, and I want to always you to feel that you will always have. I will always be interested to know what it is you have to say, because it is ultimately very healthy for me and my own personal journey going forward. And so I always want to make sure that that is made clear in the videos that I make. And sometimes, who knows, maybe that message is not transmitted well enough. I mean, that's something I should work on, but that is the most important thing for me. And so that is my sort of roundabout way of me to say thank you and to extend to you my thanks, because I was just encouraged so much by the discussion on The Irishman, and I'm very much encouraged by that as well. I was also encouraged by my discussion on the Godzilla set from the Criterion Collection. You know, I know that for a number of people who are acquaintances of mine through YouTube and other places, I know for some of you the Godzilla set is not really very exciting, and in fact it might be considered a disappointment considering it's Spine 1000 and the Criterion Collection, etc. But for the most part, even with that Godzilla set discussion, I felt a very similar situation, in that I think that people who have responded with mixed feelings or maybe negative feelings about the set have still been very respectful to people like myself and others who might be responding more positively about such a set. And so I just want to, you know, say thank you very much to that, and know that please know that, you know, I don't I always listen to your negative views as well. I don't want to, I don't want to say like, oh, it's, I don't want to brush it off or something like that. No, I really think it's very valuable, because there's no, for instance, with the Godzilla set, that set's not an infallible set. I mean, there are mistakes, right? Heck, I think you and I, in our exploration of the set, noticed that there were some spelling errors here and there, and they made character names incorrectly and stuff like that, and also this supplements. There are some issues with the supplements and that sort of thing. So there are some substantive issues with that particular set, and so I want to make it clear that any take on anything is worth it, and I think you will find that people will sense, even with negative takes, that you are acting in good faith and that you are being genuine with your approach. Because, as I say, I've been very fortunate with this YouTube channel to come across a lot of people who are always respectful, and they maintain a genuinely friendly tone with me and with everyone else around here, even at the point of disagreement, which is, to me, something that I value very much. And so I want to thank you very much for that. And I just want to let you know that I value your opinions very much, and I find them to be a learning experience every day. What do they say? What's the phrase about, for instance, the Criterion Collection? It's film school in a box, right? Well, I think that kind of moniker could also be applied to YouTube, because, to a certain degree, at the very least, of course, I think that I am learning things almost or on a daily basis from cinema, or about cinema, from people like yourselves, enthusiasts like yourselves. And so, film school in a box, heck, right? This, for me anyway, you are providing, film school via YouTube. So I want to say thank you very much to all of you, and let us, as I say, just enjoy the time that we have with our friends and family and loved ones, and let us enjoy the cinema that we are able to watch. And if things are not to our particular liking, let's say it. Let's express that. I think it's also important to express times when we are dissatisfied, and when we find that it's not necessarily up to a certain standard. That's also very legitimate to say. So, but ultimately, let's remember that we can always act and respond and talk with a sense of freedom and a sense of openness, but also with a sense of good faith and friendliness towards each other. And I'm just very grateful that I've been able to meet a number of people like yourselves, who have been very generous with your time and with your energies, and who've been very very kind to me, even when I didn't deserve it. So I want to say thank you very much for that. And thank you to all of you who are responding to my discussion on The Irishman. I thought that was very, very, I just lost my train of thought. It was, what was I saying? Very, what is it? Three varies. So very, 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 and now I've just lost my train of thought. This is why I shouldn't do these things live. This is where I would cut. I would do a very smooth dissolve on a video. Very, what's the word? Well, I forgot the word I was going to say, so I'll just use a replacement. So very, very, very nice. Okay, so thank you for encouraging. That's the word I was encouraging. So it was very encouraging. So thank you very much for that. So anyway, let's see. So let me just see who is here in the chat. So I want to say, Isaac, hello, my dear friend. Jay is here. Hello. And Jay, thank you very much. I know we were talking about Facebook and stuff. And anyone, if you want to friend me on Facebook, I am on Facebook. I've turned my settings on to private. But if you want, you can send me a message or you can try to send me a friend request, and I'm usually very open to that. Once in a while I'll get these, like, you know, like friend requests, something like send me, I'll send you pictures of my, that I don't like those sorts of things. But as long as it's not any of that sort of spam stuff, then I'm very open to responding to any friend requests. So if you want to send me a friend request, if you can't send me a friend request for some reason, just send me a message, and I'll try to link through that message to your profile, and I'll try to send you a friend request or something like that. So I'm usually very open like that. I'm also on Instagram, Daisuke Beppu 4. I think 3 other Daisuke Beppus in the world beat me to the punch, and so I am the 4th Daisuke Beppu on Instagram. So if you find me on Instagram, it'll be Daisuke Beppu 4. And you can also message me through there as well. Sina Arts, our dear friend, is here. It's great to see you. Squishy Things, hello. Let's see. Blake, hello. And Skull Salad. It's hey, Daisuke, good to see you. Hey, good to see you too, Skull Salad. Let's see. Hamdan, hello. Let's see here. Oh, yes. Hello, Daisuke. Speaking of The Irishman, I saw Scorsese's interview with Peter Travers, and he said that he was just back from doing the color correction for his movie Italian American. Yes, I have heard that rumor as well. So the rumor is that Italian American will be coming to the Criterion Collection. In what form, we are not sure. But I think if the past is any indication, then I think we might see it as how it had appeared in a previous release. Now, I'm now looking for my previous... Gosh, where would it be here? Is it here? Now, excuse me here while I'm just looking through my Laserdisc collection, because I'm trying to find the Laserdisc of 3 by Scorsese, which is right here. So this is the Laserdisc, which is a Voyager Laserdisc, which is 3 by Scorsese, and the 3 in question are Italian American, The Big Shave, and American Boy. So this was a single disc, side 1 and side 2, but it had those 3 films. And so this was a Voyager disc. It wasn't a Criterion Collection Laserdisc release per se, but it was the Voyager Company release. And so, as some of you may know who are familiar with the Criterion Collection history, you'll know the connections with the Voyager Company. And as the Criterion Collection was releasing, or as Laserdiscs were being released under the joint venture between the Voyager Company and Janus Films, which was under the name of the Criterion Collection, the Voyager Company itself was also releasing its own Laserdiscs, as well as other releases under different media, like CD-ROMs and things like that. But it had its own separate Laserdisc line, which is an interesting thing because the Voyager Company Laserdisc line included titles that later were introduced into the current DVD Blu-ray collection, like the W.C. Fields films, or let's see, For All Mankind. You know that film, For All Mankind? That was a Laserdisc that was under the Voyager Company label, but then it was, of course, released later in the DVD Blu-ray collection of the current Criterion Collection, right? And so Italian American is part of this release, 3 by Scorsese. I actually remember when I was a kid, I had this, but it was on a VHS tape. And I watched this. I particularly remember watching The Big Shave a lot, which is an interesting thing. It's quite an interesting short film. But Italian American is really great. So yes, I did hear that rumor about the possibility of Italian American coming to the Criterion Collection. My guess, my hunch is that it might be in this 3 by Scorsese. Although I would not be surprised if it came as a supplement to another Scorsese film, right? Because it's something that I think could be part of a supplement to a much larger release, but I'm not sure yet. So, your guess is as good as mine. So, But very interesting stuff indeed. Very interesting stuff indeed. Um, let's see here. The Pool Hustler Man. Well, I love that name. That's great. Constructive criticism is a good thing. Destructive criticism is often just thoughtlessness by another person, but it can also be deliberately malicious and hurtful. Yeah, that's a really good point. It's sometimes hard. It's sometimes hard. Even I would say even comments that seem like they are really thoughtless, I think they can possibly or potentially be made with some thought in mind. It's just that the way in which it's being expressed or worded is just not the best particular way. It's a tough call, but it's really tough. But it like sometimes films are pretty tough things, I would say, and they're not always easy. And that it's understandable if a reaction is, let's say, lukewarm or somewhat tepid towards a film that is regarded as being a critical darling or something like that. I mean, it's a perfectly reasonable thing, but I completely understand your point, and I love the way you put it here, the Pool Hustler Man. I think it's great. And let's see. Blake says, I'll say this, as someone who enjoys both cinema and video games, cinema is leagues better than terms of toxicity and such. Yes, I'm not a video gamer. I mean, I do know of certain issues that have arisen with respect to that, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. Cinema can be, and also the online cinema discussions can be a very interesting thing indeed. JR62, hello, it's nice to see you. Fleagle Fargle says hello, and you just finished watching Night Moves. Okay, very interesting. Yes, Night Moves. Gene Hackman. Great. I hope you're doing well, my friend. Let's see. Blake says, we recently became Instagram friends. Oh, great. Yes, love your post. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, excuse me. Pardon me. I'm sorry. I'm getting over a cold. I'm very sorry. So sorry if my coughs are getting in the way here. Excuse me here. Pardon me. Sorry about that. So, so I do put up pictures on Instagram. I'm not the best Instagrammer, but yeah, there's that. So, well, thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, Pete. Excuse me. Sorry about this. Pete 1972 is here. How are you doing? I hope you're well. My cinematic self. Hello. It's nice to see you. Tim, it's nice to see you. Jonah Dunn. Hello. Tim says, Eyes Wide Shut is playing in London cinemas now for its 20th anniversary. My goodness, is it 20 years already for Eyes Wide Shut? Man, talk about time flying. Man, I really admire that film very much. I think the film has a particular effect on me, or let me put it differently. I think I am able to better appreciate the film as I get older. I remember when I saw it for the first time much younger, in my 20s, I think, or maybe it was in college, I think, or just around that time. And I remember not understanding it or appreciating it very much, but I think I'm able to do so now, being a little bit older and with a little bit more experience, and just with years under my belt, so to speak. So I appreciate it very much. I don't know where it falls necessarily on the spectrum of my favorites in terms of the Stanley Kubrick filmography. I think, well, let me say this. I think, I don't want to say anything specifically, but if we're remembering that this was the last film that was made by Stanley Kubrick before his untimely death, and we remember how that film ends, I think I'm not a filmmaker, I'm not a director, I'm not an artist, but if I were ever to be a filmmaker director, I think there would be no better way for me to end what would be my final film than the way in which the film Eyes Wide Shut ends, in particular the last line of the film Eyes Wide Shut. I think that's a really great last line to end one's final film, if ever there was one. Yeah, it's filled with a lot of meaning and double entendre and that, which is the perfect way to end, I think. And it's still left up in the air as to what exactly happens, I think. But I mean, that's what the great films do, right? They leave room open for the viewer to think and wonder and ponder and consider. So, and I think Eyes Wide Shut is no exception to that. So, anyway, so thank you very much for that. Denise says, hello, Daisuke. Hope you're having a lovely weekend. Thank you very much. Thank you. I haven't had the time to dive into The Emperor's Naked Army. The Emperor's Naked Army marches on. Yes, yes. I hope you enjoy that film. It's a very tough film, but it's really worthwhile. But I gave the Arrow RoboCop release a watch last night. Oh, good job. Very good. Yes, the Arrow release of RoboCop. Yes. Let's see. Blake says, "How's the quality on Laserdiscs? I've actually never watched one before. It's surprisingly good for a lot of them." And very good on many of them. Let's see. Oh yes, Dennis says, I was meaning to ask, is there any plan to do a project on either the Loveless Anarchism box set or the Buddhist trilogy released by Arrow, both of which I picked up due to your recommendations? Yes, I don't know about plans, but it's always been a dream of mine to discuss those works, and it's also been a dream of mine to discuss the ATG films from Japan. And as you may know, a lot of those films are considered ATG films. And so it's been one of my dream ambitions and dream projects to go through the entire catalog of ATG films, or at least most of them. I think all but a couple are available through physical media releases here in Japan. And so I'd love to do that one of these days. And also the Taisho trilogy as well. I'd love to do that as well. I think the Buddhist trilogy is the one in particular that I think people, with very understandably, I think it can be very divisive because of the subject matter, and the subject matter can be quite provocative and intense and downright shocking, actually. And so I think there's a lot there to discuss, and I would love the opportunity one day. Again, I'm not an expert in these films, but I would still love the opportunity because they mean a certain deal. And also the Yoshida films as well. Those films, I think, are very dense and quite. I'll try to say this with as much a positive spin as possible. They are, in a very purposefully calculated way, they are meandering. And that is, I think, on purpose, and I think that is by design, and I think there is an artistic meaning behind such meandering. And I think that it makes the films quite strong. So one of these days, yes, I'd love to do it. That's one of the things about this YouTube thing, and I love it very much. Don't get me wrong, but it's just so difficult to find the time to do everything that one wants to do. It's just it's a little bit difficult. So I usually end up having to do things like at night or very early in the morning, and because of my other commitments outside of YouTube, and so it's a little bit difficult to be able to do a lot of things in one sitting. I usually have to focus on one particular topic and then move on, and then that also means that I have to balance the time that I have making YouTube videos with the time that I want to devote to, let's say, watching a film that might not necessarily be family friendly or appropriate for the kids, which means that I have to watch those films after everyone has gone to sleep. So it's a little bit difficult, therefore, to focus my schedule, which is all on me. I really have to try to find a better way to organize and schedule my time. But one of these days, let me say, it is something that I have considered in the past, and I still am. I haven't forgotten, so I will do that. Hopefully, if I have the time and the energy. It's one of the things, there's just so many things to do, so little time, and that's just one of those things. And it's particularly with cinema, my friends, right? Because it's so vast. When someone says, what do you like, and someone says, I like cinema. Well, I think that cinema is so vast and such a wide expanse of things and interests. I think that's akin to saying, I like food, right? I like there's so many things that are food. It's the same thing with cinema. It's just so vast and so complex. Just so much there. But one of these days, yes, I think it's worth it. And, especially the Buddhist trilogy, because I think that has a lot of room, I would say, for being. And I don't mean this is going to sound a bit. This is going to sound like I'm talking down, and I don't mean to sound this way. I don't mean to sound like I'm talking down, but I think I include myself in this as well. I think there's a lot of room for potential, let's say, misunderstanding of what those films are trying to go for, in particular because of the stark intensity of some of the film's contents. And so I think there is a lot of room for misunderstanding. And I think, therefore, it's always very healthy to try to discuss films of that nature as much as possible, even with the acknowledgement that I wouldn't have the strongest expertise with those films. I'm not an academic, I'm not a film scholar or critic, so I haven't studied those films with any great depth. But I do, based on my conversations with some other people that I've had in the past about these particular films, I do appreciate the possibility, anyway, that there might be some room for a little bit of, for lack of a better word, misunderstanding. And so I always, and I think those films are much greater than that. I acknowledge also that they are very difficult and at times almost unpleasant, actually quite unpleasant at times. And so I think there's stuff like that as well. But also I also acknowledge that cinema is this thing. It's a beast, and it's a mode that it needn't always be pleasant all the time, right? I don't know how you feel, but for me personally, I think I would just be suffocating from boredom if I were watching films that were nothing but pleasant all the time. I think that would just be the most boring thing in the world for me, and I could never stand that. And so I think it's much more invigorating if I feel like I'm being confronted by something that I am uncomfortable with, and that leads to something else. You know what I mean? It's like the clash of two things leads to a new idea or something. So one of these days, Denise, one of these days. But thank you very much for the comment. Your comment has given me further food for thought and further encouragement. So I'm always very happy about that. So thank you very much. And my cinematic self says, have you got to dig into excuse me, I'm so sorry, I have to apologize here. Again, I'm getting over a cold, and I coughed right in the middle of your comment, my cinematic self. How rude of me. So I apologize. Excuse me here. Let's see. So, have you got to dig into the Bruno Dumont releases yet? They are some of the best releases of this year from. Oh yes. So, So in fact, I have a La Vie de Jésus, Jésus right here, and so L'Humanité is somewhere over there as well. But the talk about films that are difficult, right? The works of Bruno Dumont that are available or that have been made available in the Criterion Collection, I think, are quite difficult and intense, very intense. They are certainly not for everyone. They're not for everyone, and so I don't recommend them to everyone. However, I think that with that caveat, I think that yes, they are quite intensely magnificent, and I think that they are saying a lot in terms of not only the form of cinema and the use of non-actors or non-professional actors, and the way in which information is presented, and not only information but certain scenes that would seem to be very shocking in terms of frank depictions of certain aspects of humanity. But there's like a soulfulness that is ever present, and they are quite transcendental of the medium, I think, potentially anyway. And so there's that. They involve subject matter that tends to be somewhat unpleasant again, but there again is a situation where I think sometimes it's good perhaps to be confronted with films that try to deal with quote unquote unpleasant subject matter. Dumont's films do so in a really brilliant way, and I would actually argue that they do so in a way that doesn't necessarily present the world as this bleak, stark place, as some might have argued some of the films do. I think there's a bit more room for optimism, at least in some areas of the films, not in all, but in some areas of the films. And so, the world is not wholly, completely a bleak place in Dumont's universe. But I agree with you. The films are quite good, but they are very, very intense and not for everyone. So one should just be careful before making a purchase of those films. But if you are okay with these sorts of intense works that present very thoughtful meditations on certain aspects of life, then I would recommend those releases, definitely. I will be talking about them later this month when I talk about my roundup, if you will, of Criterion releases of 2019. I'm pretty sure they will appear in the conversation. So let's see here. Okay, let's see. So just skipping around the comments here. I apologize if I've skipped your comment. So I usually, okay, let's see. Blake says, with Roma and Cold War being recent films coming to Criterion, I wonder if there is any precedent for The Irishman as well. I think the precedent is being set by Roma. We can't know for sure. And just because Roma is being released doesn't mean that it automatically is a set. It's a done deal for other films. But you never know. You never know. And I think it makes the possibility even more alive, the fact that Roma is being released. So it certainly leaves open the door. Florian Dekros, hello, it's nice to see you. I hope you're doing well. Transport and Stuff 808, what's your opinion on Noah Baumbach? I have a very positive view on his works. I should speak more about them. I haven't had a chance necessarily, just because I don't. I haven't spoken too much about quote unquote modern day filmmakers, but I have to change that, and hopefully I'll do. But I have a very positive view. Let's see. Okay, just keep going here. Oh, Zex Dex. Hello, greetings to you all and the rest watching now. Hello. I have a question. Have you watched any of the Torasan movies? They bring them out at the end of December on Blu-ray. Can you recommend some of them? Let me say that hold on until later this month. So yes, I'm a big fan of the Torasan films, and there's the Blu-ray set that is coming later this month, as well as the film, the new Torasan movie that will be released in theaters at the end of the month. So that's a very exciting thing. Looking forward to that very much. So just hopefully I'll be able to make further updates on that on this channel, maybe later this month or in January for anyone who might be interested. Let's see. Transport and Stuff 808. What is your opinion on Scorsese bringing out the dead? I like the film very much. I was planning on doing a Scorsese discussion, but it just never happened. But yeah, Bringing Out the Dead is really that comes in a very interesting time in the filmography of Scorsese. I think it's sort of the some people might think it's that quiet lull, perhaps, between the two big periods, the late De Niro period and the films that he would be making with Leonardo DiCaprio. But there's a kind of nightmarish sort of quality to it, a hazy quality to it that I find very, very fascinating. And yeah. So. Have you ever thought about doing a video on Hammer horror or Hammer noir films? Yeah, the Indicator set, right? So I have thought about it, but again, it's just with time. It's always a time issue for me. Although I know it, yeah, it's a great set. Jonah Dunn says, "What is your opinion?" Oops, well, I skipped it. So Zexdex says, "Time is a big issue. True, especially when you have kids. Being a dad myself for now, a little over a year, you have to manage the free time. Oh gosh, so you've been a dad for a little over a year, so I can assume that there's a lot of staying up late at night, taking care of the little one, right? So I know how that is. So yes. So. I hope you are enjoying this time. It's a really great time, so enjoy it while you can. So I hope you are well, my friend. And Jonah Dunn says, "What is your opinion on Funeral Parade of Roses?" Yes, I've spoken about this film a number of times in the past, but Funeral Parade of Roses is, I think, one of those great late 20th century Japanese films. I think it's a classic. I think it's one of the great Japanese films ever. I think anyone who claims to be a lover of Japanese cinema must see that film. It's just a collection, a pastiche of many different styles, and it's clever, and it's sort of iconoclastic in that way. It's also very subversive, and it plays with the form, and it's also a very good story. So just really, really recommend it. Let's see. Pete 1972. So I just wanted to say that you are almost up to 4,000 subscribers, and I'm happy that your channel is doing as well. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say. I'm count myself, of course, very, very fortunate. I know that like there's a lot of things with YouTube rules and things happening here and there and all this stuff, but things I don't see any reason to change anything here on this channel going forward. So it'll be the same old thing from me in 2020. So, but that's very kind of you, my friend. Thank you very much. And I really have people like yourself to thank, because it's because of you that I'm able to make these videos, and so I just want to thank you very much. I mean, without people like you, these videos wouldn't be anything. No one would. It's like, right? I've said this before, but if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. It's the same thing with a video on YouTube. If one uploads a video onto YouTube and no one's there to see it, does it exist? Well, so But thanks to you and many others like yourselves, it's possible to say that at least to a certain degree, however small it may be, the videos do exist. So thank you very much. And let's see. Um, excuse me. And you say, I know this is random, but since you had that nice Star Wars T-shirt. Have you heard of the 4K 77 version of the original Star Wars film? It's a fan 4K restoration from original 1977 Technicolor prints, and it looks absolutely spectacular and film-like. You can find it on eBay. Yes, I have heard about this. I mean, I'm not the biggest. I have heard about this. I'm not the biggest Star Wars, fan film collector necessarily, or fan restoration or fan version collector. But yeah, I do follow those things when I can. So. And I do have some thoughts about the rise of Skywalker, but I'll hold off on those until the film is out. So I haven't seen the film, but I've just seen the trailers and stuff, and I do have a few thoughts about that. But yeah. Oh, Donald. Hello, Donald. It's nice to see you. It's great. So it's nice to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Um, Joel Barish at the movies. Hello, Daisuke. I want to ask if you would do a video on the best 2019 Criterion releases like you did last year. Thanks and love your videos. Thank you very much. Yes. So you say will you do a video on the best 2019 releases? And my answer to that is no. I won't be doing a video. I will be, in fact, doing videos, the plural. So the answer to that is I will be doing a number of videos. So I will. I haven't decided on the number yet. I'm actually. I started earlier today just writing out the notes as to what categories I would do for that. Like last year, I think I did best essay or best cover art or something like that. I want to try to expand it a little bit. So I'm going to try to do something like that. And I think one of the things that I want to achieve with that is I want to try to be able to mention as many of the titles as possible, because excuse me, because the trick with some of these things is you want to try to be as truthful to how you feel, but at the same time, you also try to want to give as much attention to all the releases as possible. And sometimes the way it works with these best of 2019 things lists is that if you see them all in an amalgamation of all the lists, then you can see an aggregator, right? You can sometimes get a sense that some titles are being mentioned more than others. And so I always try to think about it in terms of those other titles, but that might not necessarily get as much, let's say, attention as other titles. Now, that's not to say that the ones that will likely get a lot of attention are not deserving of it. On the contrary, I think they're very deserving. But it's a little bit of a tricky thing. But I'm just trying to figure out what best way to approach that. But the answer to your question is there will be actually a number of videos, and I think at the moment I have what is it? I have the notes here. In fact, I have potentially, and this is just between you and me, so potentially 8 or 9, I think. 9, I think it's 9 so far, but that might change. But yeah, that'll be up. I'm not sure exactly when. I have to wait until the final releases for 2019 arrive. And one of the things that's a little bit tricky, of course, is that those releases tend to get a little bit delayed in arriving here because of the miles that the packages have to traverse in order to get from North America to here in Tokyo. So it usually means that I have like a week, sometimes 10 days of catch up to do. And so, but as soon as those final 2019 releases arrive, then I will start those videos in earnest. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just skipping around here. Oh, there's cash. Oh gosh, great. Oh, Carl's Rant and Reviews is here. Hello, hello. It's nice to see you. Oh gosh, you say you picked up more Criterions from the Barnes& and Noble sale, which I think ended already just today, I think. But Betty Blue, Voyager now, now Voyager, and Insomnia. Oh, that's great. That's great. Wonderful, wonderful. And let's see. Let's see. Joel Barish at the movies. Do you have any recommendations for Japanese directors that are lesser known? Oh, that's a really loaded question. Gosh, that's a really tough question. Lesser known. Excuse me. Sorry about this. Probably the one that I would direct your attention to would be Mikio Naruse. There, if you're looking for a film that's really great, that people should know, check out the Criterion Collection's release of When a Woman Ascends the Stairs. It's really one of those. It's magnificent. So that's, I think, one place to start at the least. It's just a very. There's just so many directors out there, I think. Let's see. My cinematic self says, if only the Toro Sunset had English subs. Yeah, I don't know. I heard the Amazon Japan. I haven't checked. Last time I checked, I seem to recall actually that they did have English subtitles, but don't quote me on that. Let me check about that. As I say, I actually pre-ordered the Blu-ray set, and so when it arrives, I'll be able to check directly if it indeed has English subtitles or not. Most of the time, the Japanese Blu-rays don't, and so that's a little bit of shame. Although sometimes they do, and I seem to recall reading somewhere that they might. But again, you can never trust these things until you actually see the actual product in your player playing, and so. Yeah, so we'll see, but hopefully it will. Let's see. Joe Barish at the movies says, "Are you fond of silent cinema?" Yes, I haven't spoken a lot about silent cinema here, but I am fond of it. I'm not the biggest expert, but I am fond of it. Do you have a favorite genre? I don't know if I can pinpoint a specific favorite genre necessarily. When I was very young, when I was a kid, I loved horror films and science fiction genre films, and I think that has carried over to this day. But now I think it's just a matter of how should I put it? I mean, if a film works, it works. And so it's if it's in a particular genre over a different genre, if it works, it works. But I tend, let me put it this way, I tend to not have a genre I dislike. Let me put it that way. Let's see. And I think. Oh, so Zixx says they do about the Torosan Blu-ray. So So I was thinking correctly, right? So they do have the Blu-ray descriptions. I mean, they haven't been released yet here, right? But the Blu-ray descriptions indicate English subtitles, right? And if that's the case, then this bodes well for the possibility of more people outside of Japan becoming exposed to the films, the Otoko wa Tsuraiyo series, the Torosan series. It's a really excuse me. I apologize for my cough today. I apologize. Please forgive me. But the Torosan series is a really fine series. It's in many ways it's a very typical Japanese film series, but there's so much more to the films. They happen to be favorites of my late father, and so I have fond memories of these films through the way, in particular, my father really loved the films. I mean, the comedy, I think, it might seem a little bit. Well, actually, I don't want to say too much about it now, but let me say that I do want to talk about that set, because I think it might be. It might be one of it's one of the things I'm looking forward to the most actually this year is the release of that. So It'll be nice. I mean, the films have been released a number of times here before, so it's not like we're getting anything new. And in fact, I think the set itself is missing some things that have been made available through other past releases of the films on DVD and the like. And so it's not necessarily the most complete set in the world. That's my understanding anyway. But it is a first time to see these films on Blu-ray, and they are going to be made available with English subtitles, as Dex tells us they are, and I believe you, then that is cause for celebration, of course. So really great stuff, and great. Let's see. And Tomas says, hello, my friend. How are you doing? Very well. And my cinematic self says, thanks. Makes sense as the old DVDs did, but I was thinking opposite for the Blues. Oh, that's great. So, I never had the DVDs of those, right? I actually had, not all of them, but I had the Torasan, well, not I, actually, my father had a lot of the Torasan videos on VHS. And so, I remember having them on VHS, and then I never got them on DVD because we didn't really feel like we needed to, because we always were able to watch them. And actually, I have a few of the VHS tapes in a box somewhere remaining, not all of them, but a few. And so, but now, much later, it was interesting because I was actually thinking several months back, I was thinking, I really should see about getting a number of those Torasan films on DVD. But then, lo and behold, around that time came the announcement that they would be released on Blu-ray, and the release is going to be, of course, later this month. My goodness, now it's December, so later this month. So, to coincide with the release of the final film, or this latest film that's going to be released in the theaters. And so this is going to be my first time to be able to get those films on disc. So that'll be very good for me. So I'm looking forward to that very much. So with that, my friend, so yes, so it looks like we have a number of people out there who are Torasan fans, and so that's great. I was thinking, another thing I was thinking of, and it was maybe a little bit of a stretch, perhaps. I don't know if this has been done on YouTube, but I was thinking it would be nice to go through each of the Torasan films one at a time, one video at a time. But I didn't know if that would get a lot of a response, or if that would be something that not a lot of people would be interested in. Who knows? I don't know. But if that's certainly a possibility. It's something that I admit that I have been thinking about for some time now. I don't know how probable it will be, but it's something that I am thinking about. Yesterday I saw the movie Crash for the first time. What are your thoughts about this? Is the Cronenberg film? Is that right? The David Cronenberg directed film Crash, based on the Ballard work. So if that's the film that you're referring to, so you say you saw the film for the first time yesterday. Let's see. So I saw the film actually when I was, I think, 17. When I turned 17, it was one of the things where I wanted to. It's kind of, I think about it now, it's a little bit of a silly thing on my part, but at the time I wanted to go out and almost not really celebrate, but sort of celebrate the fact that I turned 17 by watching NC-17 films. And I remember at the time, Crash had come out. Also, and I think Crash had been given an NC-17 rating, if I recall correctly. If I got that detail wrong, I apologize. I remember also around that time, Pink Flamingos had been given an NC-17 theatrical release. But I did therefore see Crash in the movie theater, and so I was quite. I think I was ill prepared for what I was watching when I saw the film when I was 17. I was totally unprepared for what I was going to see in that film. And I think by the end I found myself sort of lost and not quite knowing where to go with that film. But years later I re-examined it with a little bit of a more better prepared perspective. Let me put it that way. And I think it's still undeniably a very cold film, and even where there are moments of connection between humans, it is still somewhat of a disturbing conclusions I think the film is trying to reach. I think it's also a very it marks a certain step forward, or not step forward. That's the wrong way of putting it. But it's I think a new type of film from Cronenberg, in the sense that we are dealing. I mean, it's this film around this time that he's making films like Crash and M Butterfly, and these films were this idea of the psychology made into physical flesh and that sort of thing. That sort of the transformative nature of intense drama. It's almost transposed almost entirely onto the map of human psychology. So in other words, we do have in his past films that were dealing with what's the phrase that's used, body horror. But body horror, I think, is a phrase that is really describing the way in which psychology, the intensity of certain aspects of human psychology manifests themselves in the physical world, whether it be in the physics of the body or in the physics of how human beings react to each other. And that's I think what body horror is referring to. But whereas here, in this period in Cronenberg's filmography, I think we're getting this turning in a different direction, where you have this idea of the human psychology manifesting itself onto the physical, becoming really, in a sense, the human psychology manifesting itself onto the emotional, which of course has physical connections, don't get me wrong, but I think the whole focus is that you have not body horror, but emotion horror, I think is one way to put it. So, and I don't even think horror is the right word. I think it's more of the manifestation of the psychology onto the emotional. And if that's the case, then I think Crash is speaking to a very complex world, and I think it's a film that I still find very difficult, but I think with that viewpoint that I have, it's a little bit easier for me to digest. It's certainly a film that I couldn't digest fully when I was 17, so I think it's here somewhere as well. It should be here. Let's see. What's the spine number for that, by the way? It should be here. I always forget these things, I never am able to remember spine numbers for the laser discs, but it was a Criterion laser disc. It's around the 300s, I want to say, maybe late 200s. So that means it should be around here, and maybe it's here. Oh, here it is. It's right here. Yes. So that's the Laserdisc here. So this is spine 349, and yes. So this was 1997. So that, yes, it makes sense. So it would have been released when I was 17, because I was 17. I was born in 1979. So that I would have been 17 in 1997, correct? So that, yeah, I was either I was a senior in high school. I just finished graduating as a senior in high school, or just becoming a freshman in college, something like that. So yes, I really actually should rewatch this. So thank you very much for reminding me of this. I'll actually just set it aside and rewatch it. So let me put it here. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. I think I will be getting going soon, because it's almost time for me to go, and I just have to. Yeah, it's almost 11 o'clock here, so I'm gonna just. Sorry about this. Let me just okay. So the oncoming storm says, have you seen any films by the underrated director Alan Clark? Of course, yes. Great admirer of his works. Some of his best works include Scum, yeah, Made in Britain, The Firm, Road, and Elephant. Yes, I'm totally with you. I think his works deserve as much attention as possible. I know there have been some recent releases of some of his works, and so hopefully that will pave the way to more of a more open evaluation of his works. I'm totally with you. And let's see, Joe Barish at the movies. How many languages do you speak? Oh, do you usually speak Japanese in your household, and do you practice speaking English when you were at a younger age? Maybe I'll leave that for another day. But I don't. Yeah, I'll leave that for another day. But that's a good question. I do speak English as much as possible in this household because of my children. We are trying to raise them in order to be able to have as much of a bilingual experience as possible. But we admit it's a little bit difficult sometimes. But it's yeah, I did study French a little bit, but I don't claim to be able to speak it. I did study also Korean, so, but I don't remember much. What Korean do I remember? Excuse me. 안녕히하세요. 제 이름은 베프입니다. 좀 뵙겠습니다. And I can see, 안녕히 계세요. And I studied a little bit of Mandarin Chinese, but I can't claim to speak it. I'm not at all fluent at all. But what can I say? I can say things like "Ni hao, hao jiu bu jian," 我想喝啤酒. All right, so I hope I got that right. So and so yeah. So but I don't. I think. Gosh, and English. I was born in Japan, but I spent a number of my childhood years in the United States and in England, and so English is very comfortable for me as a language. Let me put it that way. So, but thank you for your question. I really appreciate that. And just going through here, Pete972 says, Scream Factory. You're talking about Scream Factory release of Dracula 1979. Okay, oh, right. And you're talking about the color grading on all releases of the film except for the early 80s Pan-Scan VHS. Laserdisc has a desaturated color palette that has drained nearly all of the color. Oh, that's great. Oh gosh, great. And Brian55, bonjour, monsieur, bonjour, ça va? I hope you're well. And let's see, Thomas says, thank you for your thoughts, my friend. I'm still discovering Cronenberg's later films, but I definitely agree that there's more of a focus on the psychological and emotions. Take care, my friend. Yes, likewise, I hope you enjoy. And thank you very much for encouraging me and inspiring me to rewatch Crash. I don't know if I'll be able to do it tonight, but maybe it'll be a nice film to end on, 2019. I always find it very important to find a film to end on the year, and so maybe Crash might be a contender. I don't know what else. That might be an interesting question to ask the viewers in a later video. What films do you plan on watching to end the year 2019? There are a number of films that are definitely contenders for me, but maybe I'll speak to that later if I have the opportunity. But regardless, my friend, I want to say thank you very much for reminding me to rewatch this film. I was actually thinking I should rewatch Crash, but it never materialized until right now. So thank you very much, Thomas. I really appreciate that. Okay, so excuse me, I should once again apologize to all of you for putting up with my terrible cough. I hope it wasn't too difficult on your ears. And but I'm just getting over my cold. And I'd say getting over, but it's actually not quite clear yet. So let me get going, and I want to say thank you very much for your time, and I hope you are well. And yes, we will. So the just one other thing, the viewer poll for the Criterion top 10 favorite viewer poll favorites, that is closed now. And so I will count up the votes, all the remaining entries that I received over the weekend. Thank you very much for all of you who participated. I will make a separate announcement later, hopefully later this week. And I'm actually all set to go with that. As long as I tabulate these final votes and just put them into the spreadsheet, I think I'll be ready to go. So I'm looking forward very much to seeing your reactions to the list. It's a very interesting list. And as I said before, the top 10 is really quite a remarkable top 10, and I hopefully you won't be disappointed. I certainly am not disappointed by that. I can see the list, and I can understand how these titles were selected, and it's a really great selection. So I want to thank you very much for that, and I'm encouraged. Excuse me. Pardon me. I'm so sorry about this. I am encouraged because this will hopefully be the start of something that I can do periodically. So, maybe we can do another poll in 2020. So we can do something along those lines. It can be the same question. It can be a different question. I haven't quite decided yet, but it's been a very encouraging thing, and I have all of you, my dear friends, to thank for that. As always, I've mentioned it before, and I'll say it again. This channel is not just me. This channel is a collaborative effort between me and you, my friends. This is this is like something that you are always helping me out with, and so I want you to know that I really appreciate your time and your effort and your participation and contributions to this place, because it really means a lot, and it would be nothing at all without friends like you. So I want to thank you very much for that, and I want to thank you for all of your participation with this project, and it will again it's encouraged me to continue on with it, and to do more viewer polls in the future, hopefully similar to this in the future, and hopefully sooner rather than later. So but anyway, my friends, I will be in touch with you later. And in the meantime, please enjoy the rest of your day, wherever you are in the world, or evening, whatever the case may be. For those of you, like it is for me, it could be evening. So if that's the case, my friends, please be well rested for whatever tasks lay ahead of you tomorrow, and the rest of this week. And please take good care of yourselves, and please just be happy and healthy and well, and enjoy your time. Carpe diem, my friends, carpe diem. And until we meet again, please be well, and cheers. All right, thank you very much, my friends. That was great. Thank you. All right, so thank you, my friends, and the mic is off. So just winding down. So thank you again for putting up with me and this impromptu live stream. I know I don't make announcements, but I really should make more announcements. But that's just, it's like I've mentioned this in another context, but it's like it's like the frog and the scorpion. I can't help it, right? It's in my nature, so I just can't help it sometimes. Sometimes you feel like you want to do a live stream. So it's always a pleasure, my friends, to be able to talk with you. And so just always do me the favor and always take good care of yourselves. That's the most important thing. Just take good care of yourselves, and just enjoy the time. That's the most important thing, as always. And once again, thank you very much for everything that you do. So So I will see you all again very soon. Cheers, my friends. And we're out of here.